Imagine loving what you do so deeply that at 98 years old, you're still doing it with the same fire and enthusiasm you had as a 20-year-old. Most people lose their passion within a few years, let alone 7 decades. But David Attenborough has been waking up excited about his work for longer than most of us have been alive. How? That's what we're going to uncover today, and I promise you, the answer will change how you think about your own life and work. Welcome to Life's Greatest Teachers, where we explore real stories, timeless wisdom, and secrets that truly matter for living a purposeful life. There's a video clip from 1954 that I think about often. It shows a young David Attenborough, barely 30 years old, trudging through a jungle somewhere in West Africa. His clothes are soaked with sweat, his face is covered in insect bites, and he's carrying heavy camera equipment through thick vegetation in brutal heat. And you know what you see on his face? Pure joy, absolute wonder. The same expression you'd see on a child opening presents on Christmas morning. Now fast forward to 2024. There's another clip of Attenborough, now in his late 90s, filming in a different jungle. His movements are slower, his hair is white instead of dark, his face is lined with age. But when he talks about the butterfly he's observing or the plant species he's documenting, you see the exact same expression, the exact same light in his eyes. 7 decades apart, and the passion hasn't dimmed even slightly. How is that possible? How does anyone maintain that level of enthusiasm, that depth of caring, that intensity of interest, not for a few months or a few years, but for an entire lifetime? Most of us struggle to stay passionate about things for even a short time. We start new jobs full of excitement, and within a year we're bored. We take up hobbies with great enthusiasm, and within months we've abandoned them. We enter relationships or friendships with genuine care, and over time the spark fades. Yet here's a man who's been passionate about the same thing since before most of our parents were born, and he's still going strong. I've spent a lot of time thinking about this, studying Attenborough's life and career, watching his interviews, reading his books, trying to understand what makes him different. And what I've discovered isn't some magical secret or special talent that only he possesses. It's a set of principles and approaches to life that any of us can learn from and apply to our own passions, whatever they might be. The first thing you notice when you really pay attention to how Attenborough talks about his work is that he never stopped being a student. Even now, at 98, he approaches the natural world with the curiosity of someone who's just discovered it for the first time. In interviews, he'll often say things like, "I didn't know that," or "That's fascinating. I need to learn more about that." This is a man who spent 70 years studying nature, who's seen more of the natural world than perhaps any other human being in history, and he still sees himself as learning, as discovering, as being surprised. Think about what that means. Most of us, when we become experts at something, we start to feel like we know it all. We've been doing our job for 10 years, so we think we've seen everything. We've been in our relationship for a while, so we think we know our partner completely. We've lived in our city for decades, so we think there's nothing new to discover. That sense of knowing everything is what kills passion faster than anything else. Because if you already know it all, why would you stay curious? Why would you keep exploring? I remember watching an interview where Attenborough, well into his 80s at the time, was talking about advances in camera technology and how they were allowing him to see animal behavior that was previously impossible to capture. His excitement was palpable. He wasn't jaded. He wasn't saying, "Oh well, I've seen it all anyway, what difference does it make?" He was genuinely thrilled at the prospect of learning new things, of seeing the familiar in new ways. That's the mindset that keeps passion alive. But there's something else, something deeper, that has sustained Attenborough through all these years. He connected his work to something much bigger than himself, to something that genuinely matters. For him, it was never just about making television programs or becoming famous or having a successful career. It was about helping people understand and appreciate the natural world. It was about conservation. It was about inspiring wonder and care for the planet. That sense of purpose, that connection to something meaningful beyond his own success or satisfaction, that's been rocket fuel for his passion. When your passion is connected to a deeper purpose, When you're not just doing something because you enjoy it or because it pays well, but because it contributes to something you believe truly matters, you gain access to a much deeper well of motivation. On the hard days, when you're tired or discouraged or facing setbacks, that sense of purpose pulls you through. It reminds you why you started. It gives you reason to keep going, even when the immediate rewards aren't there. Let me tell you about something that I think is crucial to understanding how Attenborough has maintained his passion. He evolved. He didn't do the same thing the same way for 70 years. His early programs in the 50s and 60s were very different from his work in the 70s and 80s, which was different from his work in recent decades. He embraced new technologies, new storytelling techniques, new ways of thinking about conservation and environmental issues. He allowed himself to grow, to change, to develop new interests and approaches within his broader passion. This is vital because one of the main reasons people lose passion for things is that they get stuck in a rut. They keep doing the same thing the same way, and eventually it becomes boring and repetitive. But passion doesn't have to mean doing exactly the same thing forever. It can mean staying true to your core interest while constantly finding new angles, new challenges, new ways to engage with it. Think about what this means for your own life. If you've lost passion for something you once loved, maybe it's not that the thing itself is no longer interesting to you. Maybe it's that you've been approaching it the same way for too long. Maybe you need to find a new angle, learn a new skill related to it, explore a different aspect of it, collaborate with different people on it. Evolution within passion is what keeps it fresh and alive. This is something many of us get wrong. We think that if we're truly passionate about something, we should be doing it constantly, pushing ourselves all the time, never stopping. But that's a recipe for burnout, not for sustained passion. Real passion, the kind that lasts a lifetime, requires rhythm. It requires periods of intense engagement balanced with periods of rest and reflection. It requires knowing when to push and when to pull back. How has Attenborough maintained his sense of wonder for 7 decades? I think it's partly because he's always looked deeper. He's never been satisfied with surface-level understanding. When he sees an animal, he doesn't just think, "Oh, that's a nice bird." He wants to understand its behavior, its evolutionary history, its role in the ecosystem, the challenges it faces. That deeper curiosity leads to deeper wonder, because the more you understand, the more you realize how extraordinary everything is. But it's also a choice. Wonder is something you can cultivate deliberately. You can choose to approach familiar things with curiosity rather than assumption. You can choose to notice details you usually overlook. You can choose to ask questions rather than thinking you already know all the answers. Attenborough has made these choices consistently throughout his life, and that's why his wonder hasn't faded. Let me share something that I find both challenging and inspiring about Attenborough's approach to his passion. He's been willing to speak difficult truths, to evolve his message, to risk his popularity and reputation when he believed something important needed to be said. For most of his career, he focused on showing the beauty and wonder of nature without being overtly political or preachy. But as he witnessed environmental destruction accelerating, as he saw species disappearing and ecosystems collapsing, he made the decision to speak more forcefully about these issues. That took courage, because it meant risking the universal affection and respect he'd built up over decades. Some people didn't want to hear about climate change and extinction. They just wanted the beautiful nature programs they'd always enjoyed. But Attenborough decided that staying silent would be a betrayal of his passion. If he truly cared about the natural world, he had a responsibility to use his platform to protect it, even if that made some people uncomfortable. This teaches us something important about sustained passion. Real passion isn't just about enjoying something. It's about caring enough to stand up for it, to protect it, to fight for it when necessary. If you're passionate about something, but you're not willing to make sacrifices for it or take risks on its behalf, is it really passion, or is it just a pleasant hobby? Attenborough's willingness to risk his reputation to speak up for what he believes in has actually deepened his passion, not diminished it. Because when you take a stand, when you put yourself on the line for something you care about, You become even more invested in it. Your commitment deepens, your sense of purpose intensifies, and that feeds your passion, making it stronger and more resilient. There's something else about Attenborough that I think is crucial to his sustained passion. He's maintained humility. Despite being arguably the most famous and respected natural history broadcaster in the world, despite having species named after him and receiving countless honors and awards, he's remained genuinely humble. He doesn't see himself as special or superior. He sees himself as fortunate, as grateful for the opportunities he's had, as awed by the natural world rather than by his own achievements. Humility is essential for sustained passion because ego is passion's enemy. When you become arrogant, when you think you're better than others or that you've mastered something completely, you close yourself off to learning. You stop being open to new ideas and perspectives. You become defensive rather than curious. And all of that kills passion. But when you maintain humility, when you see yourself as a perpetual student, when you're genuinely grateful for opportunities rather than entitled to them, you stay open. You stay curious, you stay teachable. And that openness is what allows passion to continue growing rather than stagnating. Watch Attenborough talk about his work, and you'll notice he gives credit to others constantly. He praises his crews, he thanks scientists for teaching him, he expresses awe at the animals and ecosystems he's documenting. He never makes it about himself. And that humility has allowed him to maintain the learning mindset and the sense of wonder that have kept his passion alive for 7 decades. Now, I want to address something that might be on your mind. You might be thinking, well, it's easy for David Attenborough to stay passionate. He's had an extraordinary career, access to amazing opportunities, the resources to travel the world and film incredible things. How does this apply to me and my ordinary life? And I get that. Most of us aren't going to have careers as glamorous or opportunities as extraordinary as Attenborough's. But here's what I want you to understand. The principles that have sustained his passion aren't dependent on having an exceptional career. They're universal, staying curious, connecting to deeper purpose, evolving and finding new angles, building community with like-minded people, balancing intense engagement with rest, cultivating wonder, speaking up for what matters, maintaining humility. These principles work for any passion, in any context, at any level. You don't need to be filming in exotic locations to practice staying curious about familiar things. You don't need a television platform to connect your work to a deeper purpose. You don't need access to cutting-edge technology to find new ways of approaching what you love. You don't need fame to build meaningful relationships with people who share your interests. These principles are available to everyone, and they work. I think about teachers who've been passionate about education for 40 years. I think about nurses who still care deeply about their patients after decades in medicine. I think about gardeners who find endless fascination in growing things year after year. I think about parents who maintain wonder and engagement with their children, even through the challenges and repetitions of parenting. These people aren't famous. They're not doing anything exotic, but they're demonstrating the same principles that have kept Attenborough passionate for 7 decades. The question isn't whether you have access to extraordinary opportunities. The question is whether you're willing to approach what you do with curiosity, purpose, evolution, community, wonder, courage, and humility. Those choices are available to all of us, every single day, regardless of our circumstances. Let me tell you what I think is the deepest secret to Attenborough's sustained passion, the thing that underlies all the other principles we've discussed. He genuinely loves what he does more than he loves the rewards it brings. He's not passionate about nature because it made him famous or wealthy or respected, though it's done all those things. He's passionate about nature because he finds it intrinsically fascinating and valuable. The success and recognition are byproducts, not the source of his passion. This is crucial because if your passion is really about external rewards, about impressing others, about achieving status or wealth or fame, it won't last. Those rewards either fade or they become insufficient. You achieve them and find they don't satisfy you the way you thought they would, or you fail to achieve them and become bitter and discouraged. But if your passion is about the thing itself, about the intrinsic value and joy you find in it, that's something that can sustain you for a lifetime. Attenborough would still be fascinated by nature, even if no one ever watched his programs. He would still find wonder in observing animals, even if he never received another award. That's real passion. That's the kind that lasts. And the beautiful irony is that when your passion is that genuine, when it's really about the thing itself rather than external rewards, that's often when the external rewards come most abundantly. People recognize and respond to authentic passion in ways they never do to passion that's really just ambition in disguise. Here's what gives me hope when I think about Attenborough's 7 decades of passion. It means it's possible. It means that losing interest and becoming jaded and giving up on things we once loved isn't inevitable. It means we have agency. We have choices. We can cultivate the mindsets and practices that sustain passion, or we can fall into the patterns that kill it. But it's up to us. And the beautiful thing is, all of this is available to you too. Not the fame or the extraordinary career necessarily, but the sustained passion, the ongoing wonder, the deep engagement with what matters to you. You just have to make the choices that nurture it rather than the ones that kill it. You have to value curiosity over certainty, purpose over comfort, growth over stagnation, community over isolation, wonder over cynicism, courage over safety, humility over ego. If this video has inspired you to think differently about passion and how to sustain it, I'd love it if you'd hit that like button and help this message reach others who need to hear it. Drop a comment, sharing what you're passionate about and how you're working to keep that passion alive. Let's learn from each other. Let's support each other in choosing passionate engagement over comfortable apathy. And if you haven't subscribed, join this community of people committed to living with purpose, wonder, and sustained passion. Together we can keep the fire burning, not just for weeks or months, but for decades. I'll see you in the next video, and until then, stay curious, stay purposeful, and never stop wondering.